here.
He is not AIDS infected. He's just a skinny, good-looking dude.
Is this gay you? Is that gay you? We done followed Tony for a long way, and now we done seen how he gets his way through Hollywood. Look at that headband.
I have really reached the bottom of my career.
I have no idea who he is. Never saw him.
There's literally a floating island of garbage. You know, when I was going in to do that rally, the goal, have the president go, that was cool. Thanks, man, for the comedy show. No, he didn't.
Never heard of him and don't want to hear of him.
I didn't get to talk to him that day.
Tony Hinchcliffe, I love you like a little brother, but I've had it up to here with your politics.
I mean, I got called a gay, racist over and over again. I'm none of those three things. A little fun fact.
So the unlikable parasite of the Joe Rogan ecosystem, Tony Hinchcliffe, spent over a decade waiting for a mainstream breakthrough that his actual comedic talent could never justify. It turns out that beneath the self-proclaimed title of a master roaster, Hinchcliffe is entirely incapable of writing a memorable stand-up joke without relying on toxic punching down, blatant political grifting, or outright cruelty. He didn't survive the comedy wilderness because he was a genius. He survived because he outlasted the shame. The viewer is told exactly what this case is about within the first 15 seconds. There is no debate here. He is a court jester masquerading as a king. Normally, when an artist spends 15 years climbing the ranks of the brutal Los Angeles and Austin comedy circuits, their evolution is marked by a refinement of perspective, a deepening of material, and a distinct mastery of the written joke. But that is not what Tony Hinchcliffe did. Instead, Hinchcliffe built a public persona around the myth of the brilliant, hard-working comedy purist who respects the craft and earned his elite status through unmatched comedic skill. He wants you to believe he is a gatekeeper of raw meritocracy. The reality is far more transactional. This matters at scale because Hinchcliffe represents a broader, deeply cynical shift in the modern media landscape. When proximity to an algorithmically massive platform replaces genuine creative merit, the cultural output inevitably degrades into mere tribal pandering and cheap rage bait. He is the blueprint for the fame-hungry optimization strategist who realized that if you cannot make an audience laugh with wit, you can always make them gasp with malice. Take, for example, the moment when Tony's early trajectory completely exposes the baseline lack of organic demand for his talent. If there is any timeline that proves his career is an artificial byproduct of pure ecosystem placement, it is his early grinding history from 2013 onward. For nearly a decade after his first appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, Tony was a known entity who consistently failed to launch dynamically on his own merits. He was a comedy store door guy, answering landlines and riding a bicycle from Burbank just to beg for a few minutes on stage.
Very lucky early on at the Comedy Store to get to host the open mics there, which are 3-minute long sets. The talent coordinator put me in position to host, which means you have to go up on the stage every 3 minutes and back down again.
Oh, so you had lots of workout.
With 40 comedians in a row doing 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. I would go up in between each comedian and kind of make fun of them, or maybe say, hey, by the way, that joke would work if you had the punchline at the end, like if you would have said boom, and then the crowd would laugh. So it was kind of like I was giving advice or annihilating them, roasting them. And you only have 3 minutes to think about what you're going to say after they're done. So I would literally got in the habit of being able to watch someone for 3 minutes and be able to make fun of them 1, 2, 3 maybe jokes, and then go, all right, your next comedian, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes I'd be sitting in the back of the original room at the Comedy Store, and another comedian would sit next to me, and we would be laughing at ourselves, whispering in each other's ears about making fun of whatever comedians on stage to each other. We'd be in the back of the room. Sometimes we'd be the only people laughing at the open mic because of what we're saying to each other. And it would be some of the funniest stuff, and I thought to myself, how do we show the comedy fans this side of it?
You've been at the store for what, 10 years?
I've been there for 12 and a half
12 years.
So started stand-up at 22 at the Comedy Store, and yeah, I was on a bicycle, no car.
When I met Tony, this was a long time ago now, He was a door guy at the Comedy Store, right, Tony?
Yep. So I'm working a phone shift. So that's like 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. You used to literally answer the landline phone. So you would have to answer the phone and go, Comedy Store, this is Tony. And you'd have to lie because the shows weren't that great back then. I've been with the band for over 4 years now.
You play guitar for the band?
I started off as the lights and
You were the
sound
lights
guy.
and sound guy.
I was working all the hours from literally 11 a.m. on the phones to 7 p.m. at night, and then I would put on the Comedy Store t-shirt and work the door from 8 p.m. till 2:30 in the morning, and then do it again the next day.
By doing that all day, they'd give you a couple minutes at night on the stage?
Not even. They would give you a couple minutes on Sundays and Mondays. When I used to ride my bicycle here all the way from Burbank, you know, I would take the train at Universal City and get off at Hollywood Highland, and then I'd bike miles. And it's crazy, the bicycle ride home after you don't get a spot.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, Tony used to get on the fucking tour buses that would pull up in front of the store and go, hey, I'm going to do 3 minutes. He reminded me of that.
Yeah.
I used to do that. Like if it was before a shift or whatever and the TMZ bus came up and they had a microphone on the thing. So I would go right up there and I go, hey, how's everybody doing? I had some bad jobs in my day. I used to be a bus boy and a bag boy. Like all these corny shit, terrible fucking beginner level jokes.
Tony first appeared on the podcast in 2013. Almost a decade before he got any success. And this is not by accident.
Tony is an up-and-coming young stand-up. I found out about you from Brian.
From all the comedians who got famous from appearing on JRE, he has the least comedic skill, interesting personality, or interesting life story. He was right there. He had the golden ticket. Yet nothing happened. And of course, this prolonged stagnation reveals the foundational flaw in his entire comedic identity. Rogan's platform can grant millions of eyeballs, but it cannot manufacture an interesting personality or an inherently funny perspective where none exists. Which is just proof that Tony's presence was tolerated rather than celebrated, an institutional fixture of the Comedy Store who simply hung around the campfire until the heat rubbed off on him. He didn't build a following through stand-up. He built a format to hide his lack of it. But this is really just the beginning. To truly understand the depth of this comedic deficiency, you have to look at what happens when Tony is stripped of his protective roast framework and forced to deliver standalone stand-up material. It is an absolute embarrassment. Consider his actual recorded bits regarding handicapped toilets, cerebral palsy, and birds pooping in his mouth.
When I do use the public restroom, I always use the handicap stall. It's the best. It has those fun bars that you can hold on to, pretend like you're taking some kind of roller coaster shit. What kind of jetpack shits are handicapped people taking? Where they're holding onto that bar, just sitting there like, whoa! Whoa! Man, thank goodness this bar was here. I would have hit my head on the ceiling. All of a sudden I look under the door and I see 2 wheels roll up. Oh shit. I guess I have cerebral palsy now. You open the door and just pull one of these off. Like, oh, hello, how are you? Some of my old buddies from high school actually just came out to visit me in LA where I've lived for 11 years. And I took them to the beach and a bird shit in my mouth. Go have your magic moment. This is the biggest thing in your career. Go do it. Go get it. Go get it. We actually had her eggs frozen, not on purpose. They're just inside of a cold, frigid bitch.
I'll be in July. I'll be in San Diego with Casey Rock.
Is that still not sold out?
No, they just released new tickets.
Oh my God! Wow.
AmericanComedyCode.com.
Wow. Help Redman fill up the comedy club he's been promoting for months in San Diego, people. The entire city of San Diego. It's a comedy club, people. Buy tickets for Redman's show.
Thanks for all the support, Tony Hinchcliffe.
Okay.
When I do use the public restroom, I always use the handicap stall. It's the best. What kind of jetpack shits are handicapped people taking where they're holding on to that bar just sitting there like, whoa, whoa, man? The joke writing here is shockingly basic. It is utterly uninspired. He is a professional comedian operating at the level of an open mic amateur. This is the material of a writer who cannot construct a sophisticated premise to save his life. The punchlines rely entirely on exaggerated vocal inflections and making fun of vulnerable groups because he lacks the intellectual capability to write a joke that lands on its own structural merit. He needs a target. Without one, he collapses into background noise. And that is where the behavioral pattern turns genuinely toxic. Because he knows he cannot generate authentic comedic joy, Tony has developed a pathological need to shatter the self-esteem of those around him under the guise of coaching or roasting. Look at how he treats his long-term partner and producer, Brian Redban, systematically demoralizing him in front of live audiences for his unsold ticket inventory. Help Redman fill up the comedy club he's been promoting for months in San Diego, people. Buy tickets for Red Hitch. And there it is again. This isn't clever banter. It is deeply personal malice masquerading as a joke. Because here's the thing about Tony Hinchcliffe. His entire self-image is built on being the dominant arbiter of taste in the room, a trait his old comedy peers openly confronted him about when recalling how he would tell beginners in the hallways that they would never make it. Watch the visible discomfort of those old peers as Tony smugly doubles down with, "But I was right."
But I think I did get a reputation for being a mean guy, especially back then. And I think that happens with people before they have a reputation or before they are established.
I'm in my young 20s. You're in your young 20s. This is my best bud. I'm in this new place that's weird. Some people are accepting, some people aren't. And you are in the hallway saying, "You're never going to make it, kid."
But I was right.
From the way I remember it, it wasn't just the roasts and the jokes, which I also love to do. The part that felt different for me back then was it felt very personal. My best friend John was always around, and the way you talked about him to me wasn't even in joke form, was mean.
Does John still do stand-up?
No, John.
But he was back then, right?
John was doing stand-up, and he was doing stand-up until he started writing on the first show we worked on Undateable.
Yeah, I write on shows too. But the point is like he quit doing stand-up, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, so I wasn't wrong about John.
His format isn't designed to celebrate comedy. It is designed to validate his ego. But even that's not the most revealing part. Look at his desperate pivot into the political culture wars as the ultimate form of digital optimization. When the pandemic hit, Tony's live audience gimmick was instantly destroyed, driving him into severe depression and absolute desperation, while his peers' podcasts skyrocketed without a live theater prop.
Everyone was saying, "Tony, you have to do a podcast. You got to do a podcast. Everyone has a podcast." I really thought I was late to the party. Everybody kind of already had their podcast going for a few years.
The Comedy Store didn't have much going on at the time, and there was Redban who had his own podcast network. I was featured on a lot of the podcasts. So when it was time to come up with my own, I wanted to do one live in front of a live audience. And I don't think people notice it, but when you go see a real raw live show, you can have a lot more fun. And then it feels more dangerous. It's more fun. So we went live at the Comedy Store, and I used my Comedy Store open mic hosting experience.
But I realized very early on that while 3 minutes seems like a short time, it's also a very long time if someone's a newer comedian. And so I decided to make it 1 minute for my show. It was completely unheard of at the time. It's called Kill Tony. It's on the Death Squad Network. You can check out a live show at the Comedy Store on Mondays.
You do it live only, right?
Yeah.
That's it, live. That's a good concept. That's very good.
It was definitely it didn't happen overnight with that show. I think the main reason is that the show isn't a typical podcast. When people go, "What's this podcast?" "Oh, it's open micers."
That you can't really describe Kill Tony in like one sentence.
I go down to the open mic people. I go out there when they're all signing up and I make an announcement and I tell them who's on the show and I tell them the concept of the show. And we had a record 44 comedians sign up on Monday night for the opportunity to do 1 minute.
And we were doing this was a free show. I remember we were like, maybe we should charge $5, I think. I mean, that was so scary for us because we didn't want those 30 people not to show up anymore.
Yeah, I remember doing it in the belly room. Not even sold out, in the belly room.
Which is about, 80 people, 100 people. It's a small room. And then we did it for 4 years or so. And then one day they offered, "Hey, do you want to start doing it in the main room, the big room?" And
it's what, 200-300?
Yeah, 300 or so. And that was one we're like, dude, I don't know. If we leave this room, start doing it there, they're just going to put another show in there. And then we're going to be stuck in this big room with, what if we can't fill that room? It's just this huge room.
Scary.
So it was very scary. COVID hit right when we were like kind of on the ups and ups and stuff. And they're like, "Fuck, our show has to have an audience or has to have people.
Yeah.
And we have to keep on doing it."
Instead of, everybody else is just doing their normal podcast. Everybody else's podcasts during the pandemic skyrocketed like that. Us, the only show with a live audience, was done but we didn't stop.
The COVID days were some of the grossest days ever for Kill Tony.
Down on the open mics from West Coast to...
Because it was just a bunch of people calling in, doing stand-up comedy over a webcam.
It was the most fucking depressed. I was losing my mind. My neighborhood was where the riots hit, where we were shooting. Our studio was at La Brea and Sunset. So there's literally homeless encampments on fire that you had to walk by to get into the studio. Like the city was on fire.
Everybody else's podcast during the pandemic skyrocketed like that. Us, the only show with a live audience, was done. It was the most depressed and losing my mind. He panicked. He realized his solo value was zero, which is actually just the tip of the iceberg for his transition into a hyper-partisan political grifter. Following Rogan to Austin wasn't a creative choice. It was a financial migration to exploit culture war fatigue and cater to a specific audience hungry for unvarnished race baiting disguised as boundary-pushing art. He found his ultimate safety net by turning the stage into a protective bubble of manufactured rage bait. But the most satisfying part of a prosecutor's case is watching the bubble burst. Now, a lot of the Joe Rogan fanboys are rushing to his defense right now, arguing that Tony Hinchcliffe is an indispensable savior of raw, unfiltered stand-up comedy who provides an unmatched platform for amateur artists to break into the industry through a pure, ruthless meritocracy. They claim his cruelty is just tough love designed to forge real talent. Except the evidence shows the exact opposite. During the 2020 lockdowns, when stripped of the live theater gimmick, Tony's format completely fell apart into a desperate mess of people doing comedy over webcams, while his peers thrived on pure personality. This proves the platform was never about elevating the art of comedy or nurturing raw merit. It was a luck-driven live format that Tony relies on entirely because he cannot generate comedic energy or maintain an audience through his own standalone value. The platform doesn't serve the beginners. The beginners serve as human shields for his own creative bankruptcy. He is completely dependent on the spectacle. The cherry on top of all of this, the absolute peak consequence of his pathology, landed on the global stage at the Madison Square Garden Trump campaign rally. This is the moment where Tony's toxic, unvarnished punching down was dragged out of the protective bubble of the Austin comedy grift ecosystem and exposed to the real world. Standing at the podium, completely misreading the room and assuming his usual internet edgelord immunity applied, Tony confidently delivered his now infamous joke, calling Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage.
There's literally a floating island of garbage. You know, when I was going in to do that rally, the goal, have the president go, that was cool. Thanks, man, for the comedy show. No, he didn't.
Never heard of him and don't want to hear of him.
I didn't get to talk to him that day.
Former President Donald Trump is now scrambling to do damage control.
Somebody said there was a comedian that joked about Puerto Rico or something.
After a comedian at his rally in Madison Square Garden called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage.
Now, obviously, in retrospect, having a roast comedian come to a political rally a week before Election Day and roasting a key voting demographic, probably not the best decision by the campaign politically.
The fallout was an instant, unmitigated disaster. It became global news, causing a massive international political liability that forced the very campaign he was desperately pandering to immediately scramble for damage control and completely disavow him. I know you are enjoying this video because I really am too, but I really need your help to grow to my first 1,000 subscribers. Please click on the subscribe button and be a part of my journey, thank you. Now let's get back to it. I mean, just think about that. He thought he was entering the elite halls of power. He thought he was finally a king. Instead, he was treated like radioactive waste by his own idols. And the devastating irony here is staggering. Years ago, a young, broke Tony Hinchcliffe was sneaking onto TMZ tour buses just to blurt out terribly corny, beginner-level jokes about being a busboy. Flash forward to the peak of his multi-million-dollar arena status, and the baseline quality of his solo joke writing has completely failed to evolve. He is still just a desperate beginner blurting out cheap nonsense for attention. Only this time, the entire world saw how hollow the material actually is. So when you step back and look at the whole picture here, the illusion of Tony Hinchcliffe completely evaporates. And beneath the custom gold thrones he literally sits on in his apartment to overcompensate for a decade of failure.
I've been to Tony's apartment in Austin. He literally has thrones. For real, he sits.
Is there an explanation? I love it personally, but are you on a set? Or are you?
No, this is the middle of my home, actually. I finally made money after a decade and a half plus of really, really struggling. And I decided, you know what, if I'm gonna buy stuff for my home, I'm gonna do it crazy in the way that I've always imagined in the wildest dreams.
Solid
gold chair, first order business.
Yeah.
He remains an entirely uninspired writer who can only mimic strength by stepping on the vulnerable. The trajectory of modern comedy ecosystems proves that algorithmic fame doesn't require a subject to be uniquely talented. It merely requires them to be endlessly shameless. When proximity to power replaces genuine creative merit, art inevitably degrades into mere tribal pandering and cheap rage bait. Ultimately, a crown built entirely on pulling down others will always expose the king as nothing more than a captive court jester. The thing about Tony is that he will always show you exactly who he is if you know how to look. Subscribe if you want the part 2. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.